The cave glowed with swirling patterns of light as Tai continued to channel energy through the crystals. The luminary enforcers backed away, their forms flickering with uncertainty. Elder Vox remained still, silver light pulsing slowly. This human should not have this knowledge. Yet I do, Ta said simply. The question is why? Why did your ancestors leave this gift inside human DNA if not for this moment? Jiyu stepped forward. Maybe they saw something in humans that you've forgotten, Elder Vox. Maybe they believed our species could someday be worthy of knowing yours. Navi moved to Ta's side, blue light mingling with the glow from the crystals. Elder, the Forbidden Project had a purpose. The scientists believed isolation had made our kind stagnant. They sought connection with other forms of consciousness. Elder Vox's form shifted uncomfortably. They were idealists who ignored the dangers. Every species who discovered our existence tried to use us, capture us, or worship us. None saw us as equals. Until now, Ta said. With careful movements, Ta lifted hands from the crystal wall and turned to face Navi. Then, drawing a deep breath, Ta spoke. The sounds that came from Ta's mouth were not human language. They flowed like water and chimed like crystal, forming patterns in the air that matched Navi's blue light exactly. Tai was speaking Navi's true name, not to control or use the luminary, but as a greeting between equals. Navi's form expanded with joy and surprise. You speak it perfectly. How? It was always there, in my mind, Tai explained. Like a song I knew but couldn't quite remember until now. The crystal cave suddenly filled with new energy as something unexpected happened. The resonance between Tai and Navi spread outward, touching Jiyu, who gasped as her mind suddenly opened to the luminary patterns as well. I can see them too, she whispered in amazement. The patterns, the colors. The effect didn't stop there. Through the cave entrance came surprise shouts from outside. The search team that had accompanied the luminary enforcers, all human, were staring at the sky, pointing at the luminary scouts they could suddenly see hovering above the mountain. What is happening? Elder Vox demanded, alarm filling their communication. The resonance pattern is activating dormant pathways in nearby humans, Navi explained with wonder. Ta has become a catalyst. Outside the cave, more voices joined in as people from the nearest village looked up at the night sky and saw, for the first time, the luminary observers who had always been there. Elder Vox moved quickly to the cave entrance, then returned. This is spreading. Humans everywhere are beginning to perceive us. Not with fear, Ta pointed out. Look at them. They're curious, amazed, but not afraid. It was true. The humans outside were staring upward with expressions of wonder, not terror. This changes everything, Elder Vox said quietly. The council must be consulted. And what will you tell them? Navi asked. That humans can perceive us but aren't trying to capture or use us. That maybe the ancient project wasn't a mistake after all. Elder Vox was silent for a long moment. I will tell them we face a new reality that requires new thinking. The elder turned to Ta. The dormant pathways you have activated, can you control this process? Ta nodded. I think so. With help from Navi. Then perhaps we can manage this transition slowly, carefully, Elder Vox said. A controlled revelation between our kinds. 3 months later, Tai and Jiyu stood on the observatory roof where it had all begun. Navi hovered beside them, joined now by 2 other luminary who had been assigned as official contact specialists. The first official meeting between human and luminary representatives begins tomorrow, Jiyu said, looking at her phone. Everyone's nervous. They'll manage, Ta said confidently. Both sides want this to work. Navi's blue light pulsed gently. After millions of years of watching, we're finally learning what it means to be seen. Ta smiled and spoke Navi's true name again. No longer just sounds but a bridge between 2 forms of consciousness that had evolved separately, but now faced the future together. Elder Vox entered the cave, their silver light filling the space with cold, sharp brightness. Unlike Navi's gentle blue glow, Vox's energy felt ancient and stern. 4 Enforcer Luminary followed, surrounding the humans and Navi. "This violation cannot continue," Elder Vox communicated. The words formed directly in everyone's minds. "Observer Navi, you have broken our highest laws. These humans have knowledge that threatens the secrecy of our existence." Meanwhile, Tai was deep in concentration, eyes closed, absorbing the complex patterns Navi was sharing. Each pattern felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place in Ta's mind. Not new information, but forgotten knowledge finally remembered. Jiyu stood protectively in front of Ta. "Your secret is safe with us. We mean no harm." Elder Vox's silver light pulsed with dismissal. Humans cannot be trusted with such knowledge. History has proven this countless times. Yet one human can hear our true patterns, Navi argued. "That should not be possible, Elder. Doesn't that make you curious why?" The Elder's form shifted slightly. "It is a dangerous anomaly, nothing more." Tay's eyes suddenly opened. "It's not an anomaly. It was planned." The words came out with strange certainty, as if Tai was remembering rather than guessing. All the Luminary turned their attention to Ta. "What do you mean, human?" Elder Vox demanded. "The patterns in my mind, they're not just Navi's true name. There's more." Ta stepped forward, facing the Elder directly. "Your people did something to early humans, didn't they? You changed us." The cave fell silent. Even the Enforcer Luminary seemed shocked. Elder Vox's light dimmed slightly. "That information was erased from our records thousands of years ago. How could you possibly know this?" Navi moved closer to Ta. "Elder, I believe Ta is one of the echoes. The human genetic project was not completely destroyed as ordered." "Impossible," Elder Vox replied, but with less certainty. "That project was shut down before it could succeed." Jiyu looked confused. "What project? What are echoes?" Navi explained while keeping a wary eye on the Enforcers. "Long ago, some luminary believed we should not merely observe other species, but help them evolve. They selected promising species and made small changes to their genetic code. Humans were one such species," Elder Vox added reluctantly. "A small group of luminary scientists added specific neural pathways to some early humans, pathways that could eventually develop the ability to perceive and understand our energy patterns. They called these modified humans echoes because they could echo back our true patterns," Navi continued. "But the council decided the project was too dangerous and ordered it shut down. All modified humans were supposed to be removed." "Killed, you mean?" Jiyu said angrily. "Yes," Elder Vox admitted, "but it seems some survived. The modifications passed down through generations, mostly dormant, until now." Tay touched the crystals on the cave wall, which glowed brighter in response. "I've always heard these patterns, always felt connected to something beyond Earth. Now I know why." Tay turned to the largest crystal and placed both hands on its surface. It began to pulse with light that matched the rhythm of Ta's heartbeat. "What are you doing, human?" Elder Vox demanded. "Testing a theory," Tay replied. "If my brain was designed to understand luminary patterns, maybe I can do more than just hear them." The crystal under Tay's hands began to glow brighter, changing from its natural color to a vivid blue that matched Navi's energy signature. "Stop this immediately," Elder Vox commanded, moving forward. The Enforcers also advanced, but Navi moved to block them. "Wait. Let Ta finish." With eyes closed in concentration, Ta began to speak, not in words, but in sounds that rippled with energy. The crystals throughout the cave responded, amplifying the pattern, filling the space with harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. The luminary Enforcers froze, their forms flickering with shock. That's a creation pattern," Elder Vox said, their stern presence now tinged with awe. "A fragment of the original luminary Genesis sequence. How can this human know this? Tai opened eyes that now shimmered with blue light. Because your people left it inside us, waiting to be remembered. Hours passed in the crystal cave. Outside, bright lights occasionally flashed through the small opening as luminary enforcers searched the mountainside. Jiyu had fallen asleep against the wall, exhausted from the night's events. Tai sat cross-legged on the cave floor, studying Navi's form with intense curiosity. "Can you change your shape?" "Yes," Navi replied, shifting from a tall crystal form into a sphere, then into something like a flowing ribbon of light. "We have no fixed physical form like humans do." "How do you communicate with each other?" Tai asked. "Through energy pattern exchanges, what you might call language, but much more direct and complete." Navi shifted closer to Ta. "May I ask how you experience our patterns?" Tai thought for a moment. "Like music, but more complex. Each pattern has color and feeling attached to it. When you speak, I see blue ribbons of sound that make sense somehow." This information seemed to excite Navi. "That is remarkably close to how we actually communicate. Your brain is translating our energy patterns into sensory information you can understand." Jiyu stirred and opened her eyes. "Any sign of them leaving?" "No." Navi's light dimmed. "In fact, more have arrived. I sense at least 6 enforcers now." And Navi's form suddenly contracted in alarm. "Elder Vox has come personally." "Is that bad?" Jiyu asked. "Fully awake now?" "Very. Elder Vox oversees all luminary operations in your solar system. For them to come here means this situation is considered a critical threat." Tom moved to the cave entrance and peeked out through a small crack. In the pre-dawn light, floating lights of various colors moved across the mountainside, searching systematically. "They're getting closer," Ta whispered. Jiyu joined Tai at the entrance. "We can't stay here forever. We have no food, no water. The minerals in this cave will hide us for now," Navi said. "But you are right. We need a plan beyond hiding." Tai turned to Navi. "You said my speaking your true name was impossible. What if I could learn to speak it completely?" "That would be unprecedented," Navi replied. "But even if you could, what would it accomplish?" "I don't know exactly," Tai admitted. "But there must be a reason I can hear these patterns. A reason they feel so familiar to me." Jiyu, always practical, had been examining the cave walls. "These crystals are interesting. They seem to respond to Navi's light." She was right. Where Navi's blue glow touched the crystals, they shimmered with matching patterns, almost like they were communicating. Tai touched one of the responsive crystals. "These feel similar to the patterns I hear from you, Navi." Navi moved closer to the wall. "These are rare resonance crystals. They can store and reflect energy patterns. Some luminary used them for recording information long ago." Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air outside. The ground shook slightly. "They're using energy pulses to scan for us," Navi explained. "The cave won't hide us much longer." Jiyu looked panicked. "What do we do?" Tai's eyes lit up with an idea. "The crystals. If they can store energy patterns, maybe they can amplify them too." "Navi, could I use them to project your true name pattern?" "Theoretically, yes," Navi said. "But why?" "If I can speak to the other luminary in their own language, maybe they'll listen. Maybe we can show them humans and luminary can communicate directly." Before Navi could respond, a voice filled the cave. Not sound exactly, but pure meaning that all three could understand. "Observer Navi. Humans, this is Elder Vox. We have located your position. Surrender immediately." Jiyu grabbed Ta's arm. "They found us." Ta looked at Navi. "Teach me the rest of your true name." "Quickly." "It is forbidden." Navi hesitated. "And dangerous. A true name is complex beyond human comprehension." The cave entrance suddenly lit up with intense white light. A tall, silver form began to materialize. "We have no choice," Tai insisted. "Please, Navi." Navi's blue light pulsed once, then expanded to surround Ta. Listen carefully. This is who I am. Energy patterns flowed from Navi into Ta's mind. Beautiful, complex, and somehow deeply familiar. Jiayu's car climbed the narrow mountain road, headlights cutting through the darkness. In the back seat, Navi's blue light dimmed to avoid detection from above. Turn left at the next dirt path, Navi instructed. The cave entrance is 2 kilometers ahead. Ta looked back through the rear window. In the distance, more lights appeared over the observatory. There are more of them coming. Elder Vox must have sent additional enforcers, Navi said. This situation is now classified as a major breach. Jiayu gripped the steering wheel tightly. Can someone please explain what is happening? What are you exactly? And why are your people trying to hurt us? Navi's form rippled. My kind are called luminary. We exist as energy patterns, not solid matter like humans. We have watched countless species across the galaxy for millions of years. Why watch but never make contact? Tai asked. Safety. Protection. When species discover us, they often try to use our energy for weapons or power. Some try to capture us. And no species has ever been able to hear or speak our true names. Jiayu turned the car onto the dirt path, branches scraping against the windows as they drove deeper into the forest. What are these true names you keep mentioning? She asked. Navi's light pulsed softly. A true name is not like your human names. For luminary, our name is ourself. It is the exact pattern of energy that forms our consciousness. To know a luminary's true name is to have power over that luminary. Ta looked thoughtful. That's why they were so shocked when I spoke part of your name. Yes, no non-luminary has ever been able to perceive our true patterns, let alone reproduce them with sound. Navi explained. It should be impossible. The car stopped at the end of the dirt path. Ahead, the mountain rose steeply, rocks and trees blocking any further progress by vehicle. We walk from here, Navi said. The cave entrance is hidden behind those large boulders. As they got out of the car, a distant hum filled the air. Something was approaching. Hurry, Navi urged, floating ahead to lead the way. They scrambled up the rocky slope, Jiayu nearly falling twice. Tai helped her up, and they pressed on until they reached the boulders Navi had indicated. Behind the rocks was a narrow opening, barely visible in the darkness. Navi's light provided just enough illumination for them to see. Inside, quickly, the luminary instructed. They squeezed through the opening and found themselves in a large cave. Strange crystals lined the walls, glowing faintly with multiple colors. These minerals block luminary scanning, Navi explained. We should be safe here, at least for now. Jiayu sank down onto a rock, exhausted and overwhelmed. I still don't understand why Tai can hear your true names. Navi's form expanded slightly, light reflecting off the crystal walls in beautiful patterns. That is what puzzles me as well. By all we know of humans, it should be impossible. Ta walked slowly around the cave, touching the crystals gently. When I was a child, I thought everyone heard these patterns. My parents took me to doctors when I tried to explain the sounds I heard. They called it an auditory processing disorder. When did you first hear them? Navi asked. Always. My earliest memories include these sounds, these patterns. Ta turned to face Navi. Why can I hear them when others can't? Navi's light flickered thoughtfully. There is a possibility, though it seems unlikely. Long ago, some luminary believed certain species could be guided to evolve the ability to perceive our patterns, a way to eventually communicate directly. You mean someone changed human DNA? Jiayu asked, alarmed. Not all humans. Perhaps just a rare few, as an experiment, Navi replied. But such projects were forbidden by the Council thousands of years ago. All records were supposed to be destroyed. Tai sat down next to Jiayu, so I might be the result of some ancient alien experiment. If true, you would not be the only one, Navi said. There would be others with similar abilities, though they might not understand what they are hearing. Outside the cave, the humming sound grew louder. Navy's light dimmed further. "They are searching the mountain," Navi whispered. "We must remain quiet now." The scout's crystalline form flickered with shock. For several long seconds, no one moved on the observatory roof. "That is not possible," the scout finally communicated, their red light pulsing with confusion. "No human can speak any part of a true name." Ta stood tall, surprised by their own courage. "I've heard these sounds all my life. In dreams, in the space between thoughts." The scout turned to Navi. "This human is dangerous. The council must be informed immediately." Before Navi could respond, the door to the roof burst open. Jiyu stood there, eyes wide as she saw the two glowing crystal forms. "Ta," she shouted, "get away from those things." The scout's attention snapped to Jiyu, another witness. This situation is now severe. The scout began to gather energy, forming it into what looked like a sharp red beam aimed at Jiyu. "No," Ta shouted, stepping between them. Navy moved quickly, their blue light wrapping around the scout's red beam, absorbing it. "Stop. These humans mean no harm." The scout's form grew brighter with anger. "You protect them against your own kind. This is treason." Observer Navi. "They deserve a chance to understand," Navi replied. "The human spoke part of my true name. That has never happened before." While the two luminary argued, Ta grabbed Jiyu's hand and pulled her to the side of the roof. "What are those things?" Jiyu whispered, her voice shaking. "The blue one is Navi," Ta explained quickly. "The angry red one is some kind of scout. More are coming, and they want to erase our memories or worse." "We need to call someone," Jiyu said, reaching for her phone. Ta shook their head. "Who would believe us? And what could anyone do against beings made of energy?" The scout suddenly broke away from Navi and rose higher above the roof. "Enforcer Rin approaches. You have minutes, not hours. I will report this directly." With that, the scout shot upward toward the moon, a streak of red against the night sky. Navy's form dimmed slightly, as if tired. "You must leave this place. Now. When Rin arrives, this entire facility may be destroyed to remove evidence." "Where can we go?" Tai asked. "If these beings can travel from the moon to Earth in minutes, where could we possibly hide?" "There is a place," Navy replied. "A cave system in the mountains, lined with rare minerals that block our energy scanning. I discovered it years ago, but never reported it." Jiyu looked between Tai and the glowing blue form. "This is insane. We should go to the authorities." "And tell them what?" Tai asked. "That aliens made of light are hunting us. We'd be locked in a mental hospital." Navi's form pulsed urgently. "Decide quickly. Rin is approaching Earth's atmosphere." Ta looked at Jiyu. "I'm going with Navi. These patterns, these beings, they're connected to something I've felt my whole life. I need answers." Jiyu took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm coming too. But this better not be a trap," she added, looking directly at Navi. "I am risking everything to help you." Navi communicated. "When I interfered with the solar flare to protect your world, I broke our highest law. I cannot return to my people now." The three quickly made their way down to the parking lot. As they got into Jiyu's car, a bright light appeared in the sky, much larger and more intense than the scout. "Drive east into the mountains," Navy instructed, their form compressing to fit in the back seat. "Quickly." As Jiyu sped away from the observatory, a beam of intense white light struck the building behind them. Equipment sparked and died, computers erased. Enforcer Rin had arrived, and the hunt had begun. Darkness fell over the mountains as Tai climbed the path to the observatory. The normal staff had gone home hours ago. Only the security guard remained at the entrance, and he knew Ta well. "Working late again?" the guard asked with a friendly smile. "Yes, just need to check some data," Tai replied, trying to sound normal despite the racing heart inside. Once inside, Tai went straight to the roof access door. The night air was cold and clear, stars shining brightly overhead. The moon hung large in the sky, seeming to watch the earth below. Meanwhile, Jiayu sat in her car at the bottom of the mountain road. She had promised to wait, but worry gnawed at her. The patterns they had discovered were incredible, yes, but meeting something unknown in the dark. It seemed dangerous. After checking her watch for the 10th time, Jiayu started her car. She would at least drive up to the observatory parking lot. On the moon, Navi prepared to leave for Earth. It was a serious violation of luminary law, but there was no other choice. Enforcer Rin's ship was now just 1 hour away. As Navi began to shift form, alarms suddenly blared through the lunar observation post. Navi turned to see a small luminary craft landing nearby. It was too early to be Rin. From the craft emerged a different luminary, one with a sharp, aggressive energy pattern. This was Rin's advanced scout, sent ahead to secure the area. Observer Navi, the scout communicated, "You are confined to this post pending investigation. Where is the human who has detected our presence?" "There is no such human," Navi replied, trying to shield thoughts of Ta. The scout's energy darkened. "Your patterns show deception. The human's location has been traced to a mountain observatory. Enforcer Rin has ordered immediate memory erasure of any human who has detected us." Before Navi could respond, the scout departed, heading directly toward Earth, toward Ta. At the observatory, Ta waited on the roof, nervous but excited. The equipment inside was recording everything, set to detect any unusual energy patterns. Suddenly, the air a few feet away began to shimmer. Tiny points of light gathered, swirling together like a miniature galaxy. Ta stepped back, eyes wide with wonder and fear. The lights formed a rough shape, something like a tall crystal with flowing, liquid movements. It pulsed with soft, blue light. "Hello," Ta whispered. The shape rippled in response. Then a strange feeling entered Ta's mind, not words exactly, but meanings. "Danger," came the impression. "You are in danger." "Are you from the moon?" "The patterns I've been receiving." "Yes. I am Navi. I have watched your world for 100 years, but now another comes who will harm you." In the parking lot below, Jiayu got out of her car and looked up at the observatory. A strange glow was coming from the roof. She grabbed her phone and ran toward the building. The security guard was slumped over his desk, asleep. Jiayu hurried past him and up the stairs. On the roof, Tai was reaching out toward the crystalline shape when another light appeared in the sky. Unlike Navi's gentle blue glow, this one was harsh and red. "It comes." Navi's impression filled Ta's mind. "The Enforcer's scout. You must hide." "No," Ta said firmly. "I want to understand. I've heard your kind my whole life. Why can I hear you when others can't?" The red light grew closer, descending rapidly. "No time," Navi communicated urgently. "It will erase your mind of all memory of us." The second light reached the roof, forming into a sharp, angular crystal shape. It pulsed with aggressive energy. "Step away from the human, Observer Navi," came a cold impression that even Tai could feel. "This is a direct order." Navi moved between Tai and the newcomer. "This human is different. They can hear our true patterns." "Impossible," the scout responded. "Humans lack the neural capacity." Feeling suddenly brave, Ta stepped forward and spoke a sequence of sounds, a melody that had haunted dreams since childhood. The scout's form literally froze in shock. The pattern Ta had just spoken was part of a luminary true name, Navi's name. No non-luminary had ever spoken any part of a true name before. The day after the solar flare, news reports called it a miracle. What should have been a devastating event had somehow weakened before reaching Earth. Only minor power outages occurred, and most communication systems stayed online. Ta had not slept. The strange energy patterns from the moon filled the computer screens in the small apartment near the observatory. They made no sense according to known physics, yet they followed clear rules and patterns. A knock at the door startled Ta. It was Jiyu, a friend who worked in linguistics at the university. "You look terrible," Jiyu said, walking in with coffee and food. "Have you been up all night again?" Ta nodded and pointed to the screens. "Look at this." These patterns appeared right before the solar flare changed course. Jiyu set down the coffee and leaned closer to the screens. Her eyes widened. "This looks structured, almost like a language." "That's what I thought too," Ta said. "But who or what could use energy patterns as language?" Jiyu sat down and began taking notes. "Language follows rules. If this is a language, we can find those rules." On the moon, Navi watched the two humans with growing concern. The enforcer Rin would arrive in 14 Earth hours. Navy needed to contact Ta before then, but direct communication with humans was forbidden for good reason. Most human minds could not process luminary presence without severe trauma. But Ta was different. The human had already shown unusual ability to perceive luminary energy patterns. Perhaps direct contact was possible. Navi began preparing a simplified communication form, something between true luminary language and what humans might understand. Back in the apartment, Tai suddenly grabbed the side of the desk, feeling dizzy. "Are you okay?" Jiyu asked with concern. "Just tired," Ta said, but it was more than that. Strange images flashed in Ta's mind. Crystalline structures flowing like water, patterns of light speaking without sound. Jiyu pointed excitedly at one of the screens. "Look, I think I found a pattern. These sequences repeat, but with small changes each time, like conjugations in a verb system." Ta looked at where Jiyu pointed and felt something click in understanding. "You're right. And if we arrange them this way." Ta quickly typed commands, rearranging the data into a three-dimensional model. The pattern that appeared on screen made both of them gasp. It was beautiful and complex, like a galaxy made of mathematical equations. "It's a message," Ta whispered. "And somehow, I think I know what it's saying." Without fully understanding how, Ta began translating parts of the pattern into words. "Warning, danger, coming, help." Jiyu looked at Ta with concern. "How can you possibly know that?" "I don't know," Ta admitted. "It's like I've always heard these patterns. In dreams, in music. Like they were waiting for me to understand them." On the moon, Navi detected a faint response coming from Earth. Someone was sending back simplified luminary patterns. Impossible as it seemed, Tai was learning the language at an incredible speed, far beyond what any human should be capable of. The patterns coming from Tai were crude but clear. "Who are you? What danger?" Navi had to respond quickly. Luminary Enforcer Rin's ship had suddenly increased speed and would arrive in just 4 hours. There was no more time for careful planning. Navy gathered energy and sent a focused beam toward the observatory where Tai's equipment could detect it. The message was simple. "Meet. Mountain Peak. Tonight. Danger coming from stars." In the apartment, Tai watched new patterns appear on screen and somehow understood their meaning immediately. "I need to go to the mountain tonight," Ta told Jiyu. "That's crazy," Jiyu said. "This could be anything. It could be dangerous." Ta looked at the patterns again. "I've heard these sounds my whole life, Jiyu. Now I finally have a chance to learn what they are." What Ta didn't say was that the patterns felt like coming home. 3 days later, Tai sat in the observatory control room surrounded by screens showing urgent warnings. A massive solar flare was heading toward Earth. It was much bigger than any flare in recent history. "All observatories report immediately," said the voice on Ta's phone. It was Director Kang from the National Science Center. "This is a Level 1 emergency. I'm sending the data now," Tai replied, fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. "The flare will hit in approximately 12 hours. Communications and power grids across the northern hemisphere will be affected." On the moon, Navy received urgent messages from Luminary Command. The solar flare had not been predicted by their models. It was too powerful, too sudden. Navy's orders were clear. Observe only. Do not interfere. Record the human response to the natural disaster. But as Navi analyzed the flare's path, something felt wrong. The pattern was too precise, too directed. This was not a natural event. Navy sensors detected faint energy signatures at the edges of the flare, signatures that matched a hostile species from another sector of the galaxy. This was a test, or perhaps an attack, disguised as a natural disaster. Navy faced a difficult choice. The luminary law of non-interference was absolute. But if this flare hit Earth at full strength, millions would die, and the planet's technology would be set back decades. In the observatory, Ta stared at the screens with growing fear. The calculations showed the worst-case scenario. Even if warnings reached everyone in time, the damage would be catastrophic. Then Ta noticed something strange in the data. The flare's path was changing. It was subtle, but clear to Ta's trained eye. Something was altering the trajectory, weakening the solar storm's power. "That's impossible," Ta whispered, checking the numbers again. On the moon, Navi worked quickly, using luminary technology to create a deflection field. It was a small intervention, just enough to reduce the flare's impact without being too obvious. But any interference at all was against everything Navi had been taught. As the deflection continued, Navi felt a strange resonance. Someone was tracking the energy pattern. Navi focused sensors toward Earth and found the source. Ta was not just observing the flare, but somehow detecting the luminary energy manipulating it. In the observatory, Ta's equipment picked up an unusual pattern coming from the moon. It matched the strange signals Ta had been recording for months, but much stronger now. Without fully understanding why, Ta adjusted the observatory's main antenna to record this pattern. "It's beautiful," Ta said quietly, watching the energy signature displayed as waves on the screen. Without thinking, Ta began to hum along with the pattern, finding notes that matched its rhythm. On the moon, Navi froze in shock. The human was not just detecting the energy field, but was somehow echoing it back, creating a faint response that only luminary should be able to produce. Before Navi could process this impossible development, a powerful signal cut through from luminary command. "Observer Navi, you have violated primary protocol," came Elder Vox's stern communication. "Your interference has been detected. Return to command immediately for disciplinary action." Navi hesitated, looking down at the small observatory where Ta continued to record and mimic the energy patterns. "I cannot comply," Navi replied finally. "Something unprecedented is happening here. This human can perceive our energy signatures." "Impossible," Elder Vox responded. "If true, this makes the situation more dangerous, not less. We are sending Enforcer Rin to your location. Do not attempt further contact." The connection ended. Navi knew time was short now. The Enforcer would arrive within days with orders to eliminate any evidence of luminary existence, including, potentially, the human who could somehow perceive them. Navi had to make contact with Ta before it was too late. Navi floated above the gray surface of Earth's moon. The crystalline being had no true body like humans did. Instead, Navi existed as patterns of light and energy that most creatures could never see. For 100 years, Navi had watched the blue planet. The humans who lived there never knew they were being studied. This was the way of the luminary, Navi's ancient race. They watched but never showed themselves. They had seen thousands of worlds and species rise and fall across the stars. "Humans are not ready," the elders always said. No species ever was, in their view. Navi focused energy sensors toward a small building on a mountain in South Korea. Inside, a human named Ta worked alone at night. Ta had short black hair and tired eyes that looked through a large telescope. The human wrote numbers in a notebook and typed on a computer. Unlike other observers, Navi had grown curious about this particular human. Ta was different. 3 times now, the human had looked up suddenly, as if hearing something when Navi's energy patterns shifted. This should not be possible. Humans could not sense luminary. Navy moved closer, hovering just above the observatory's roof. Inside, Ty rubbed tired eyes and looked at the computer screen. Strange readings had appeared again. Patterns in the background radiation that made no sense. For weeks, these patterns had shown up during Ta's night shifts. They followed rules that felt almost like a language. "What are you?" Ta whispered to the screen. On the roof, Navy's energy patterns flickered with surprise. The human had adjusted the telescope to almost the exact frequency that could detect traces of luminary presence. It was still far too weak to truly see Navi, but it was closer than any human had ever come before. Ta stood up and walked outside onto a small platform. The night air was cold. Stars filled the sky above the mountain. Ta looked up directly toward the moon, toward the exact spot where Navi washed. "I know something's there," Ta said softly. "I've heard you my whole life." Navi pulled back in shock. This was impossible. Luminary communicated through complex energy patterns, not sound. No human ears could hear them. Yet this human spoke as if sensing Navi's presence. A signal pulsed from the stars, felt only by Navi. Another luminary, Eldervox, was checking on the Earth observation. "Report status," came the wordless command. "Standard observation continues." Navy responded, hiding any mention of the unusual human. The species advances their technology, but remains unaware of greater cosmic life. "Good. Maintain distance. Remember your duty." The connection faded. Navi had never hidden information from the elders before. It was not the luminary way. But something about this human made Navi hesitate to share everything. Below, Ty went back inside the observatory and opened a personal notebook. In it were drawings of crystalline patterns and shapes that looked remarkably like luminary energy formations. Next to them, Ta had written musical notes. "The same song, every night since I was a child," Ta murmured, humming a sequence of tones. From the roof, Navy recognized the pattern with growing alarm. Somehow, this human was translating luminary energy patterns into sound. The melody Ta hummed was disturbingly close to the first sequence of Navi's true name, the energy signature that contained Navi's entire being. No non-luminary had ever perceived a true name, let alone reproduced any part of one. Navy should report this immediately. The elders would shut down Earth observation, perhaps even take measures to ensure humans never develop this dangerous ability. Instead, Navy stayed, watching as Ty mapped the stars and unknowingly charted the paths of luminary observers. Something unprecedented was happening here, and Navi wanted to know how far it would go.